recording. It's all yours, Major.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Weeks. Just as a note for Mr. Cost, WAMA sounds like we're making noises, but that means Washington All Mission Academy. So, and that's a monthly training where we meet normally the whole weekend, but through the virtual form, we condense to 1.5 to 2 hour classes all on Saturday. But when we get back in person, you're always welcome to come and visit and see what we do if you feel like it. It's all the way in Ephrata in Eastern Washington, but yeah, it's far. Unless you can fly there, then it's fun. It doesn't matter how it is. Anyway, so I want to remind everybody to mute their microphone unless they need to talk. If you have a question, can you please put that in the chat box that you have on the side of your window? I will be sharing my screen for the presentation. When I have documents, I will have to use the document camera. Then in that case, I'll pin the camera so that it becomes a main screen for you to watch. And safety, always safety, stay hydrated, stay fed, that's fine. Just keep fluid away from your computer, that's dangerous for the equipment. Stay away from any live wires. Don't put your fingers in the plugs, that hurts. I've tried, it's not fun. And so danger of electrocution, don't trip over cables, you know, the typical safety thing. Make sure that all of you have somebody in the house that is hopefully an adult, so that if there's an emergency that you can have them help you. If you do not have anybody, or if there is, if you were like to collapse suddenly, we will be contacting the emergency number that you have given to us. So please speak out if you have an emergency. If you need to step away from the computer during the presentation because you have to use the restroom, whatever, you don't have to tell us. Just quietly go, do your things, and come back and catch up with whatever we're doing. So any other questions on the protocol? Okay, so you have the buttons, raise your hand if you have a question that you will be raising your hand when we're in the discussion phase of it. We might ask you a question where you answer by yes or no, and you have little icons that click yes or no. And you can click go slower or go faster, depending on what you're doing. You can raise your hand, you can say yes, you can say no, or click again, then cancel it. So please use these on the side of the chat. So now let's go. I'm gonna be sharing my screen. And here we go. So the other instructor that we were gonna have was unable to come, and so that'll be mostly me. And we have our guest speaker, Mike Koss. So here, we're going to talk about cryptography, and my thing is not working properly. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like using a different setup than usual. So when we talk about cryptology, cryptography, cryptanalysis, well, all these big names. So we have to go back to our Greco-Latin. And you know that when I do class, I always make you go back in your etymology, and that's a way to enrich your language. So don't miss that part of the lesson. Crypto comes from the Greek, kryptos, which means hidden or secrets. And logi will come from logia, study. So that's the first part. When we talk about cryptology, we're talking about the study in general, everything that is related to the crypto messaging in the certain way, but not just message, there's more than that. But when you talk about cryptography, the first part of the root of the word is the same, but the suffix here, graphy, comes from graphene, and that means to write or to draw. So that's the different part that we have. One is the study, the other is to draw or to write. So what is cryptography or even Christology? So that's where we study techniques to communicate in a secret way so that we can give a message to somebody without the others understanding what we're saying. And I'm sure all of you in the classroom or around you have used different way of communicating with your best buddy, and you didn't want somebody else to know anything about that. In the classroom, I typically see that starting from about second, third grade, where I have students starting to actually write their own message. We will see twins that make up their own message, their own language to talk to each other, and nobody else can understand them. I've seen kids, they were students, they were like third graders or fourth graders, learning the Morse code and talking to each other in Morse code. But they didn't know that I actually have my Morse code card and I can decrypt what they say, but decode actually, it's a code. So anyway, we're all talking, what we're going to be talking about is how to transfer information from one point to another in a way that the in-between people don't know what the message is. Cryptanalysis, we have the same root again, but we have analysis as being the suffix. And in that one, analysis comes to analyze, analysis. So that's the part where we, for example, we have a message and we don't know what it means, and we have to analyze the encoded message and figure out what is the original message. So an example here, we have the English language letter frequency. So typically when you write in English, you will see that the frequency of a letter A is different than the frequency of a letter B or E and so on. That's why for those who play Scrabble, you'll notice that different letters have a different amount of tiles. And that's to reflect the frequency in the language. You will need a lot of A, E, I, O, T, so S, R, then after you have N, then you have H. So these are the letters. You're gonna need a lot of them to be able to play in Scrabble. I have Scrabble at home in French, in English, and in Spanish. Yes, I do play in all three, it's fun. And the hardest for me is the Spanish one. But anyway, they have a different frequency of letters in their own language. So they have different amount of tiles because of that. So the first recorded cryptanalysis dates back to the 9th century, and that was done by an Arab polymath named Al-Kindi. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, I do not speak Arabic. So he actually described in a manuscript that is here on extracting obscure correspondence. He was able to decrypt messages from using the language letter frequency. And from there, it was because, for example, here you see that E is the most used letter. In the message, you just have to find what letter is used the most. Then from there, it's like, this is very likely going to be E. And then from there, he's able to figure out the different letters. Then from common words, he's able to figure out what the message is saying, and so on. So this will be cryptanalysis, where we analyze the message and try to, without knowing how it's encoded, and from there we figure out what the message is saying. We're decoding without knowing the key in a certain way. Then another fancy word is steganography, and if somebody can help me and say that in English, because I don't know, I never say that in English.
Steganography.
Thank you. Still working on these words. So the first part, stegano, is from the Greek steganos, which means covered, concealed, protected. And the graphy will be, again, the graphene with writing or drawing. In that case, instead of the message being transformed into something else, the message is covered, is hidden. And so that's a different type. So it's not really cryptography, but we'll just touch it very quickly to mention it. Then when we'll do more advanced, obscure way of transmitting messages in the future, not this training, we'll go more into steganography, because that's very much used, for example, in digital photography. How come, for example, the FBI can figure out which printer printed what? Well, there's reasons for that. Or information on digital pictures that are encoding the location, the time, the aperture of your camera, a variety of technical information. It's all encoded in it, and that's part of steganography, whatever you pronounce. I'm sorry. In the words, we have to see a difference between a code and a cipher. When I've read a lot of literature, if you go in the more technical literature, they are more specific on what to code, what to cipher. When you go in a more layman environment, they keep mixing up the two of them. And so it can be a bit confusing. But typically a code, we replace the word or the letter by something specific. For example, in the Morse code, the A is replaced by dot dash. So, well, I can't do it like that. It would be D, something like that. So you can, like a SOS will be dot 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 dash 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 dot dot dot. So these are the typical thing. In computers, you're gonna have the ASCII codes, for example, where we have specific decimal or hexadecimal numbers that are allocated to specific characters. And ASCII is kind of like a limited version. You have to go into Unicode to cover even more characters, to cover many languages. So this is the code where you have a table, then from there, a specific character or a specific word is replaced by another one. So we don't have an algorithm, or we just have kind of a table of correspondence. And Mr. Kos, jump in if I'm misrepresenting everything. You're more the specialist than I am here.
It looks great.
Thank you. The cipher, well, you see, this is very short. The cipher, we use an algorithm. And that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. We use something, we use tricks, and there's an algorithm. There's like a program on how we're going to do that. And there's a lot of mathematics that can be involved in it, depending on what you're going to do. And that's where computer scientists have a blast in all these environments. So the code we replace, while the cipher, we take the information and we make it go through a process that transforms it into something else. Encryption, decryption, that would be like also encoding, decoding, where we encrypt, we take something that is readable, we make it unreadable. And the decryption, we take what is unreadable, and then we can transfer it back into something that is readable by people. So before, that's the plain text, what you can read. And while it's encrypted, it will be what we call the ciphertext. And that would be the same thing for the coded one, encoded or decoded. Any questions on any of this vocabulary that we're going to be using throughout the session? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is a brief history. We're going to do some activities. Then my goal is to be finished no later than 3 o'clock for me. So we have a whole hour with Mr. Kos. And if I finish earlier, which will be better, then Mr. Kos will have more time. So I'm going to start way back at the time of the Egyptians, about like 5,000 years ago. Guess what? Can you read these? Can you read these drawings? These hieroglyphs. I'm sorry?
I'm not familiar with the language, but I am able to phonetically interpret some of the characters.
That's awesome. So some of you actually have studied hieroglyph. That's great. The thing is, unless you know what this bird means, or what these waves means, or what this anther means, you can't, what these eyes means, you can't translate that. They look like drawing doodles, but in real, they're codes, because they didn't have letters, but they use these little pictures to represent either phonemes, letters, or object, words. And from there, this actually means something. This is actually a language that is written, and it's extremely difficult to break it down. And it took many years to be able to break down. And we're going to see it's like until they used it for about 3,000 years, then the language, the written language, was lost. That means nobody knew the key to go from the drawing to the language, and they were stuck. And we have to wait until they find the Rosetta Stone at the time of the Napoleonic Wars. And what they did is, with the Rosetta Stone, is from about 200 BCE, before Common Era. But the advantage of the Rosetta Stone is that here you have the Egyptian language, an evolved version. Then from there, you have the Demotic language, and then you have the ancient Greek. It just happened that people still know how to read the ancient Greek. Then from there, they made the connection into the Demotic. And with many more studies, they went into the Greek. So we have to wait until 1802 for the Greek to be broken down to understand what they were talking about. Then they continue working, and 20 years later, they were able to break down most of the hieroglyphs. And that's where you'll hear names like Jean-François Champollion, who was one French guy that worked on that, but there was also others prior to him that worked with him. And so that's a mixture of Swedish, British, and French teams working, not always together, but after the other or in parallel, to identify. And the one that finally broke down the code and published it was Jean-François Champollion. And that's why we hear his name a lot, but he was not the only one. And here you can see the Greek letters, the demotic symbols, and the equivalency in the hieroglyphics. So it's actually interesting. This is a form of code, because you don't know what the symbol means. You have no clue what they were saying. From there, we go into the Atbash cipher. So the Atbash cipher, that date, we have some proof of it from the book of Jeremiah. And the book of Jeremiah was written between 627 and 586 BCE. So it's pretty old. It's like 2,500 years ago, 25 to 2,600 years ago. And that was applied to Hebrew. And what you notice in the plain text, you have the Hebrew language symbols on the top. And then you have the reverse version of the alphabet, where the first one is at the end here. So that's a linear version where you see the plain text and it's ciphertext. For example, that symbol will be replaced by that. That symbol will be replaced by this one. Then you have the wheel version, which is kind of nice, the wheel version, to turn and see the translation. And so in the book, there's, in the English translation from the King James Version, they say, how is Shishash or Shishak? I'm sorry, I don't know how these words are pronounced. Taken. I'm sorry?
Sheshach.
Thank you. Shishach, taken, and how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? Then you go to the Hebrew here. And if you look for the word in Hebrew, it's written here, like that, because they write right to left. And when you make it go through the Atbash cipher, it will transform. So if we look for that one, looking here, here's the shin, and he transformed into a bet. And so by doing that, if you make it through that, they say Babel. So the Shishar actually, it's an encryption to give information that was Babel that was taken. So it's actually really interesting. You realize, oh my God, that was like 2,700 years ago. They were already doing that. So we have a little, in the handouts that you have a little Atbash cipher. And I'm gonna stop the sharing temporarily. And we are gonna, well, actually, you guys can take your paper. And in this, so it's a substitution of each letter is substituted by another one. Mm-hmm. And we're applying it here to our letters, the letters of the English.
Marsik, what's the difference between the Atbash cipher and the Caesar cipher used by the Romans?
You'll see.
Okay.
It's coming just after. Thank you. So you see like the A becomes Z, B is Y, and so on. And you can see, I put in lowercase the plain text and in uppercase the cipher text. And what we're going to do in the exercise, you're going to take your first name and you're going to put in the chat, you're going to put your first name and the encoding. So the ciphertext. So for example, my first name is Sylvie. The S, or I can go on this one, the S is, where is my S? S is an H. So I write H. Y is a B, and so on. So you write your first name, and then you write the ciphertext. Your first name should be in lowercase, because it's a plain text, and the ciphertext should be in uppercase. So if you can put that into the chat, the answer. Yep. Nice. So it's actually not complicated to do that, but if you don't know what was being done, you'll be wondering what it is. And depending on what's happening, you actually think it's a real word when in real they're kind of sneaking a message, a code, an information beside it. Excellent. So that's, for example, one where you can have fun and do that at work. So Herman Grupp, what's your first name? Because I see only your code, your ciphertext. You're supposed to put the first name and the ciphertext, please, so we can. That's awesome. So the one of the big thing is, just to let you know, at the end, that's okay. Thank you, Herman Grupp. At the end, I do copy and paste the chat so I can see if there's a problem, and I can always email you and say, oh, you might want to double check. It's not to grade you, it's just to make sure you understand and give you feedback. Excellent. So look like everybody, yeah, now some people are starting to decode. Yeah. Captain Kasmarsik took the Herman Grupp encoding ciphertext and decoded it into genes, decrypted. Nice. So now the next activity that we're gonna do is we're gonna go. So we were doing the Atbash or Atbach, maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry. And we're doing the sky tail. That's how the English speakers call it. If you go into the Greek pronunciation, or in Europe, we'll say the skitale. So that's another way. So in that case, we're about the same time, like 700 BCE, so 2,700 years ago. And this was used for quite a long time. And we have the Greeks, the Romans have used that, Spartan people, as you can see the hats, were using that. In that case, they had a cylinder of a certain diameter. And on this cylinder, they will have a strip, and that's why you have your rolls and your strip of papers. And from there, what they used to do, I'm sorry, I'm having hold a sec. To change my camera. Okay, changing camera.
Your audio is breaking up a little bit.
Now it's breaking up. Yeah, good thing. Sorry. I'm trying to have my share. And I don't know if any of you can see my, yeah, I'm gonna.
We can see your camera, ma'am, but
Yeah.
you're not presenting yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to, because I'm okay. Hold a second. I'm gonna share a desktop. I'm gonna share this one. There. Okay. Let's see. Come on. That's not what I want. Sorry. Hello. Hello. Technical. So I can see on side, but not on the other. This is frustrating. I think that works. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. Apologize, technical problem. And Mr. Cost, but that's about the same as yes, you may take your ABU codes off, but could you hold a second? Because I want to know if Lieutenant Colonel Wiggs wanted to take a picture first. So hold a second. Lieutenant Colonel Wiggs, are you there?
I am.
Do you want to do a picture, like a screenshot, before they take their coats because they're hot and they're gonna use materials?
They can go ahead and take them off.
Okay, so go ahead, take off. I apologize. I'm trying to do something, but it's not. I'm not host. Can I please be co-host?
I can do
You're the
that.
Colonel.
Yes. Sorry,
Thank
I
you,
forgot
sir.
to do that.
That's okay. The one that I have the microphone on.
I'm going to put it on both of them.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Okay, because I now have other option. That's kind of why. And ooh, I used to be able to do that. What is wrong with it?
Yeah, I've also found, I think there's individual participants can click on the 3 dots at the upper right of your video and say pin video, and then we can get you can set
Yeah,
your own screen. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do for everybody.
Yeah, and that's what I do for the college, but it's probably because I'm working from a Chromebook. And so it's not allowing me. Let me try to see on my other computer. Share. Nope. Record settings, securities. No, it's not letting me do that. Okay, so people, can you select my screen where you see my hands? And I think that'll be the easiest, and just pin. There's a little pin on the side if you can pin it. I apologize, it's not. I'm having a technical problem. Can
Ma'am?
everybody see the checkerboard? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Lieutenant Keiser. If
Yeah.
if you make me a co-host, I can just spotlight you, and that way everybody can see you.
That's if they pin me, they're fine.
Okay.
But thank you. Yeah, I don't know why the spotlight is not working, because usually I can do that. It's not letting me do that today. I don't know what's up. Because I do it from my work computer, but that's not my work computer.
What
So-
I'm saying, ma'am, is that I could do that for you. I run other.
Oh, okay. So that'd be Lieutenant Colonel Wig. I don't know if I can make you a co-host myself.
Or he could do it. He could actually do it for you as well.
I've lost. Oh, here you are. More. Huh. I can't do that. Sorry. I can send you in the waiting room, but I can't do the other thing. Sorry, I can't. So, is everybody pinning? Can you all see my checkerboard? This is a nice checkerboard done by my father-in-law.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You see that? What is that?
It's a toilet paper roll, ma'am.
Yes. Do you have your first roll?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you also need a second roll of a different diameter. And I use the fluo stick roll for me. Then you need a strip of paper. And you're going to need to put a message. But there's a way to do the message for the skytail. So what you're going to do is take a piece of tape. You're going to take your ribbon. And you're going to tape it here. Then what you're going to do, you're going to want to roll the ribbon around. Can you see that?
Yes,
Can you do
ma'am.
that? Then you put another piece of tape to hold it in place. So this is what we're going to be doing. The very first way that they were used, as you can see, there are letters on the document that I showed you earlier. For example, I say, I am a teacher. Write whatever you want. Don't write what I write, unless you're a teacher too. For example. Normally, you want to fill up the whole thing. Well, I'm going to continue. A teacher of, I'm sure, geology. G-O-L-O-G. Voila. When I take it off, after I've done the message, when I take it off, I have a nonsensical message. I-A-A-E-F-O-G. Oh, there's fog. Maybe there's some fog in that thing. We don't know. So, and there's a gardening tool, a hoe at the bottom. So you can see it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Well, she probably did a skytail. And I saw that she had in her office some of these neon glow stick. She probably used that. So we're going to put the glow stick around, the ribbon around the glow stick. And let's see what the message is. So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't work. I have no clue what she was talking about. So if you go back, you have to go back to your TP roll that has the proper diameter. Then I'm going to wrap it around again properly. And you can see I am a teacher of geology. And you can unpin me after that. How do I unpin myself? Here, go away. So how did it go? Everybody okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So from there, can you try to show in your windows what you've done, if you can show in the screen or the webcam? Still working on it. So by going back and forth with the 2 diameter, you can see how you have to have the stick. Excellent, perfect. Yeah, this is good. Thank you, Senior Airman Wimberly. And I'm gonna have okay, so that's good. That's good. Excellent. So we're going to continue in the presentation. You can continue on that if you're not done. So the SkyTel was used in that time, and they were actually, oops, sorry, I kind of have a problem here. They are different way of writing. We use the first orientation where we wrote like that. Here they write Sparta. But you can also write vertically. You can, you can write across where it's cut. So by writing over the edges, that makes it more complicated. So there are different variants of it. You can write whole messages and then you see only part of them and you have to figure out what that means. So it's more of a transposition cipher because we are moving the letters or the syllables or the group of letters together. So that's another type of cryptography, and we're transposing in that case. So if you feel like it, you can flip your ribbon, your paper strip, and do another one on the other side. Here you have, very often they were made in leather, but they can be made of fabric, whatever. And for example, one way they used it, it will be the belt that was around of the messenger. And when they arrive, they'll give their belt to the person that needs to get the message. And the other person will have a stick of a specific size, and they will be putting that around and be able to read the message. So that's a very interesting way. And if people don't know what you're doing, it's really confusing. It's like, it looks like gibberish. Steganography, we talked about that. So it's not cryptography, but I thought I'll mention it. That was done also by the Persians and the Greeks. And for example, they use that with their tablets. So they will have pieces of wood, for example, where they'll engrave into it or write on it a message. Then they'll cover it with wax and they do the writing on the wax tablet. So people will look at the wax and figuring, didn't think anything, when in real you had to get rid of the wax, and under it, you will see that there was a message that was hiding under it. So that was another typical way that was done. And another interesting way, which is, please don't try that at home, shave the head of the messenger, tattoo his head with the message, let the hair grow, send the messenger. When the messenger arrives on the field, they shave his head again, then they can read the message. So the problem now, everybody has the information, depending on the messenger, they didn't want the message to be available. And so they kind messages didn't always survive, but because they didn't want people to find the message again. Anyway, so that's kind of something that is interesting also. And like 2,500 years ago, that's the first time that they recorded that. It's kind of weird. Caesar cipher will be our next one. So we go to the Romans, and that's we had some record of it about 50 before Common Era. And the Caesar cipher in that case is a substitution. So we're going to be replacing things. So it's a little bit like the add bash, but the add bash, we took the alphabet one way and we reversed the alphabet the other way. In this one, we are going to be sliding. So we have one row has the letters. Then we shift the other row either to the right or to the left of a certain increment. For example, the typical number used during the Roman time was 3. So if we shift of 3, so A being 1, 2, 3, so A becomes a C. In that case here, A is a D, so they have a shift of how many?
3, ma'am.
That'll be, well, 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that'll be D. You're right. That'll be shift of 0, shift of 1, shift of 2, shift of 3. Okay. So that's the simple way of doing it. You can shift left. You can shift of a different number. So here is a picture of a Confederate cipher disk that was used during the American Civil War. And you can see that it's the alphabet on both rings, but they're gonna have to shift it, to turn it of a certain amount to be able to see what the letter equivalent. So here the A is equivalent to a Q, so that'll be 1, 2, 3. So if the A is a Q, that'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in one direction, or that will be going the other direction of 10. Okay? Practice. You have your Caesar cipher that was given in the papers. So what you want to do, let me stop the share. You actually, I'm going to stop the sharing temporarily, and you're going to have to pin my thing again. Oh, how do you do that on computer? You program it, and the computer will have to calculate like the position. So if A is position 0, then you do, so you have tables. So you can program an increment of 3, for example. So it will show the equivalent. So here I have the Caesar. And if I do a +3, that would be this way. So I slide it. Sorry. Was it better? I don't know. I can't, I'm opposite. Sorry. No, that's upside down. My camera is mirroring, but you guys are not, so sorry. I'm trying to figure out where you are.
That looks good.
Okay. I need to turn a while. So if I go +3, that goes, the A is a D. And then I'm missing, where is the other one? Oh, sorry. No, the A is a D here. So in lowercase, you have the plain text, and in uppercase, you have the ciphertext. So the A becomes a D, the E is a H, and so on. I gave you a ciphertext. What is the answer? Give me the answer in the chat. Yes, perfect, Mike. That's actually, as part of cyber education, we're going to do programming. This will be a fun one to do. Like that. Thank you. Did you have fun doing that in cryptology when you were at MIT?
Oh, I think even in high school, I was playing around with writing different encryption algorithms on my Apple II.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that was the time of the Apple II. That's true. We had an Apple IIe when I was in college. It's like, wow. Okay, what's the answers?
I can't see where you put the ciphertext, ma'am.
Oh. Let me go switch back. Thank you for reminding me that I removed sharing. Sorry about that. Application, and we want this one. Go. Can you see it? You good?
I can.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for reminding me. Sorry. Yay! Good job. Senior Airman Wimberly found the answer. Nice. So the others, you can continue, but as you can see, it's pretty simple. You just do it that way. Another way that can be doing that is for the Caesar cipher, I gave you the options of, instead of using a linear one where we can do a disk version. So we're gonna do that and we're gonna encrypt something else. Or you can have the option of doing it at home if you want, so that we don't spend too much time and we have time to work with. I don't know if you can see my checkerboard. I've taken 2 yogurt top, Zoe, and I'm into Greek yogurt, sorry. And I printed my disk, I put my alphabets on the disk, and I pasted them on the back. I pasted them on that, then I cut the plastic. Then once the plastic is cut, I did a pinhole in the middle. Or with your scissors, you can fold in 2 and pin it. Then from there, when you have the 2 discs done, you use either one of these prongs. I don't know if you can see the prong. You can use one of these prongs and you put it on in the 2 holes. And then you open the prong in the back. Then you can turn. So for this one, this is the plain text and this is the ciphertext. And in mine, for Cyber Patriots, I had, so what was my number before? Sorry, I need to go back to my slide. I had the F. So the F was my C, so that was like that. So CF, the Y, so that was the B. So B is Y, E. So I look for the E is here. So that was a B. Then H is an E. U is an R. He shifted a little bit. So that was my cyber. Then we continue Cyber Patriot, which is the competition that we do to learn about cybersecurity and system administration. If you don't have a prong, you can use just a paperclip. And if you open it and you put in the pin in the hole, Then you kind of like shove it in. Then it's in position. Then you do your shift. For example, I want a shift of 3. So my A is a D. And similarly, I can decipher. Anybody have a question? Good. So that would be for the Caesar cipher. Now I'm gonna go back and share my screen again. Here we go. And up. So from there, we have the Caesar cipher. And there are other techniques that we use. Here you have a square. And then if you want to change the plain text must come out, you split them in two. You take MU, MU for rectangle, MU, you take the opposite corner and replace them. The M become R.
Maybe cast more sig. You're really breaking out.
Okay. So you have here a rectangle around M and U, and you replace them by opposite corners so that you are P. So actually, since M go down R and U go up P, I put it in the wrong direction. Then you have for the next one, ST will become XY, and so on. So, and you can continue this way. So that's another version that we, the Alberti cipher is a more complicated version of the Caesar ciphers. In that case, instead of having only one letter that is substituted, we have multiple letters. So it's a bit more complicated. And they continue making things more complicated. When we look at the Vishner cipher, so we think actually we call it the Vishner cipher, but Blaise de Vishner actually didn't even create it. He just talked about it, and they created a variant of it. You have to actually go earlier, and with Giovanni Battista Bellasso, who was an Italian cryptologist, and he created the original disk. Then there's other people that came along, like Johann Heidenberg Trithemius, who created the tabula recta and so on. And there's like many people who work on these things and made it more and more complicated and different to make it harder and harder to crack the codes. So that's just to show you this is not one simple thing. There's many people. So for the Vishner cipher using the tabula recta, we have one exercise to do. And we're gonna do like a simple message because I don't want to spend too much time. I'm already going over time. I apologize, Mr. Cuss, for getting into your time. To the document camera again. And can you see the document? Oh, it's okay. Can you see? It's really hard to see on yours. Okay, so I'm gonna show you from my document, but you'll have to show on your paper. Do you all have your paper?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. And I'm sorry, the resolution is not the best. So for example, here I have my letters, and then I have another set of letters, and here is the ciphertext. And what you are going to be doing from there is you need to have a code. So for example, if we use our code, it's going to be cyber, for example. And we want to encode the word atom. So what we have, we put it this way. Atoms, I want to S, so I have 5. If I had a longer word, I would keep repeating cyber, 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 cyber. And atoms is a word I want to encode. So I have A for atom, and I have C is the encoding key. So that will transform into a C. So that'll be a C. Then the Y with the T. So the Y is here, and with the T, that will become R. And oh, I'm sorry, I mixed up my my Cyber and my atom. Sorry, atoms on the top. Reverse, disregard what I did before. Sorry. A, C, that would be C. We're good. The T is here with the Y here. So I go down to Y. That'll be a R. Wow, it's the same. Oh, yeah, it's symmetrical, so it doesn't matter. The O with a B. So O is here, and with the B here is N. M with the E, M, and I go with the E, that's a Q, and S with the R. S is here, and the R is there. That'll be J. So to say atom, I will write CRNQJ. So you take the letters of the one word, you take the letter of the other key and of the corresponding letter of the key. For example, A, C, A, C. T, Y, T, Y. Then you go at the intersection, and that gives you the ciphertext. Okay? Oh my goodness, somebody wrote something really messed up. What did Senior Airman Wimberly say?
Ma'am, that translates to je suis devenu obsédé par la cryptographie quand j'avais 12 ans.
Wow, that's awesome. Vous parlez bien français, c'est bien.
Merci, madame.
Okay, so anyway, so that's one of that, and it's a fun one, and you can modify how you do it. You can modify your keyword. You can modify how you use it, and by doing that, you end up having more and more complicated ciphers. So I just wanted to give you a taste of it. And then from there, we're skipping. After that, there's many others, but we're kind of like skipping. I just want to mention quickly the Navajo code talkers who were used by the Marine Corps during World War II. And these people, what they did, they used the Navajo language that is only spoken and is not written. And they assigned specific meaning to specific words. So they use each Navajo word was a specific key phrase or military tactic. And from there, they were able to give very important information within a very, very short time. For example, they use bird names for specific airplane type. You know, for example, if you had a Corsair, they will give a specific name. But if you had another type of aircraft, it'll have a different name and so on. And they were a very big contributors to the victory of the Pacific side of World War II, especially, for example, Iwo Jima. So anyways, that's about that. I think it's really interesting to know that, but that would be more coding. And then we get the Enigma machine, and I'm going to stop talking, and we can do the Pringles another time. Sorry, I'll send you the information if you want to do it. It's really fun. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Cuss because it's already 3:11. Why don't we take like a 4-minute break? Everybody come back at 3:15, please.
Sounds good.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Wiggs, are you on?
Yes.
I'm sorry to bother you. Will it be possible for you to put Mike Cuss as a co-host so that he can control sharing for him, please?
Absolutely. I'm in the process of doing that as we speak.
Thank you, sir.
Thought I'd done it earlier, but I had not. I'm glad I double checked.
Oh, he is a co-host. Okay, so we're good. Excellent. Perfect. I wasn't sure. I just thought of it. Sorry.
No. I thought of it earlier and thought I'd done it, but when I came back and double checked when you went to break, I discovered I had not done so.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, that answers my question then. So he's not a CAP member, right?
No, he's not. He's a guest speaker.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. That.
Yeah, I had sent you a couple emails regarding Mr. Cuss.
It keeps
No, I
power
never got his
on this
name
computer
in
up.
there.
Sorry.
Okay, that solves that problem.
Yeah.
You see my screen okay now?
Yes, I can see your slides.
Great.
So you're good. Perfect.
Wait for everybody to get a chance to come back from the break.
Yeah, a couple of minutes. And I apologize for taking some of your time. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. That was really fun. I love all those things.
Thank you. Well, you know, and I think that kind of give a taste to the cadets of other things, and the Pringle cans. What you have is much more interesting than playing with the Pringle cans, but we'll still use it on another opportunity of doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if
Okay, I have one more thing. Lieutenant Hull, I see you relaxing there. Do you have a cadet with you? She is not a cadet. Okay, that's good. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
That's her daughter. And she studied the Enigma machine at school.
Maybe a future cadet.
Exactly. She's only 10. We have to wait 2 more years, then she can join in.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I have everybody accounted for now.
Perfect.
Oh.
So I'll start by a quick introduction. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Mike Cuss, who is a software engineer from this area. I actually have known Mike for 25, 26 years. So it's been a long time. It's really nice to see you again and have you join us. I've met Mike when he was working at Microsoft, where he was there for quite a few years. Then I've seen him again quickly when he started working at Google. Then he went on to other endeavors. And so it's really, really nice that Gary and you stay in touch, and that you give us the opportunity to see you again and to share your fun. You have studied computer science, and you actually study cryptology under Professor Ron Rivas, that some people who are into computers will understand who he is, and you can talk about it later on if you want.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, but you have a beautiful collection of cryptographic machine, and so we're really excited to have you join us and talk to us about these things. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. So I have just kind of a brief presentation, and then I'll get into kind of showing the different machines and how they work, and I would love that people had questions about things that they don't need help understanding, because some of the things are a little confusing, but be happy to talk about that. Can you hear me okay? And can you see my slides okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So one of the things I first got interested in, I don't know if you can see my video of my screen, or I'm holding a book up here as well. This is a book called Codes, Ciphers, and Secret Writing by Martin Gardner. And it's a really fun, easy book, small, but has all the codes, a lot of the codes we talked about today, and it's just such a good writing style of, and I think one of the things that first interested me in codes and secret writing when I found this book when I was younger was this information about this thing I have on the screen here, which is the M94 Cipher device. And in the book, you can see there was a kind of a hand drawing of this thing. And when I got so excited about this, even as an adult, I was kind of looking to find one in real life. But they have one at the Smithsonian Institution, and it's actually very similar to a device that Thomas Jefferson actually supposedly invented, but he probably actually stole it from a French inventor, and but I think he patented it regardless, even though he wasn't the original inventor. But his was made out of wood, and then later on in the 20s, the U.S. Army created this aluminum version of it, and I actually did acquire one of these myself, and so I have one of these, which I'll put on the other monitor as well, so you can see that. But and I'll show that a little bit in just a little bit. I'll get rid of some of these slides. But,
excuse me, sir. Would it be possible for you maybe later on to put the title and author of the book that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, totally. I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on the screen now, you see on my slide, this is an Enigma machine. So during World War II, this was kind of state of the art for using a electromechanical device to actually encode messages. And it was, Germany was one of the first countries to really employ, this at a very high scale. Every military unit had these, the Air Force or Luftwaffe and the maritime submarines, and would go out hunting in wolf packs in the Atlantic Ocean, and they would carry one of these devices on board, and with a code book that would tell them each and every day how to set up this machine to receive messages during the day. All the messages were, of course, transmitted by radio using Morse code, and but they would then type the messages into this machine to decode them in the field. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, just basically how the Enigma works, and because it's not actually, it's easy enough to understand, like how the mechanics of it work. So Enigma has basically a keyboard. It looks like you'll notice it looks a little bit different than instead of a QWERTY along the top row, where we would have a Y, they have a Z, which I think is even on some German keyboards today, they have a different layout, Kurzsu keyboard. But the way it works is an operator would just type a letter, and then that would light one of the light bulbs above it, and that would tell them what that letter is translated to. So each letter, it's kind of like a cipher that for each key, there's a different light that would light up, different than the original letter. But it depended on a kind of a complex way of shifting those letters around, which I'll explain. There was also a plug board in the front. So they use these patch cords, up to 10 patch cords on any particular day. And when you would plug in one letter into another letter on this patch cord, it would actually swap the meaning of two letters. So if here you can see that the J is connected, I think, to S. So that actually changes the meaning of the J and the S key. It swaps them for each other. And also the J and the S lights swaps their meaning. So the Enigma machine was actually invented before World War II, but it didn't have this plug board in the front. The German government decided that they wanted to use this machine, but they wanted an extra level of security, and this really increased the total number of possible encryptions that you could have into the millions and millions, as opposed to the original machine, which only was like tens of thousands of different possible encryptions. There's also a set of rotors in the machine. So this is called a rotor machine, and the electric signal will go through these rotors to help encode the message. And the unique thing about the Enigma machine is that every time you type a letter, one or more of these rotors will move. And so that means that each and every letter of your message is actually encoded via a different code, because the position of the rotors determines how the code is actually implemented. And so this is a picture of the inside of a rotor. So you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there are a bunch of pins, and you can't see it, but I'll show you in the real one. The left hand, there's a corresponding kind of little pads that those pins would connect to. And in the middle, there's a bunch of just gobbledygook wires. And it's basically 26 wires that connect one of the pins on the right-hand side of the rotor to another of the pads on the left-hand side of the rotor. So each rotor basically is like a scrambling of the alphabet from one letter to another. And then when they pair up to each other. So the electrical signal will go from the right-hand rotor to the middle rotor to the left-hand rotor, and then to a thing called a reflector. And you basically get this kind of idea. So if you think of the right-hand side of the screen as being either the keyboard or the lights, you'll see it's actually both at once. But each one of these lines represents a letter of the alphabet for a particular position of the machine. And when you type a letter, it'll send an electrical current through the stecker, which is the plug board at the front. So there might be a bunch of ways that gets scrambled, but you follow this line through, and then it goes through the right-hand rotor, through one of those wires on the inside, and then it comes out the left-hand side. Then it goes to another, I'm not sure if I'm following this exactly. It goes through another wire in the middle rotor, and then finally another wire in the left-hand rotor. And then there's a part of the machine called the Umkevalse, which is the reflecting rotor. On some machines, like the one I'll be showing you today, the Umkevalse is fixed. And other machines that actually is a fourth rotor that you can turn by hand to 26 different positions. But anyway, once that is wired up so that 13 of the input pins are connected to the other 13 of the output pins. So that basically reflects the electrical signal back into the rotor into a different position. And then you'd follow the wires then back from left to right this time until you get all the way back out back through the stecker potentially, and then it would light up the light for another letter. So are there any questions about that? And oh yeah, I see in the chat. Sorry, I don't have the chat up on the. How do I get the chat window on this window? Here it is. Yeah, the Allies did break the Enigma code. There were several ways. Actually, the original way that the Enigma was broken was done by a Polish mathematician. Very early in the war, even before Germany invaded Poland, the German mathematicians worked out, originally even without having a machine at all, they had worked out how some of the things would work, but then the Germans made a mistake early in the war, and they actually sent through the mail an Enigma machine to their office in Warsaw, and the post office intercepted their package, delayed its shipment over the weekend while the cryptographers took it apart and found what all the wiring diagrams for all the wires, and then put it all back together and put it back in the mail. So they figured out how the device was actually assembled. But knowing how the machine works, it shouldn't be part of the security of the machine. You should always assume that whoever is trying to attack your system knows the basics of how it's working, and all the secrecy is involved in the key settings. So like there is some key, which is like the way the machine is set up for each individual message that you're sending. So in this case, it would be which rotors are you using on this particular day, what order they're placed in the machine, which patch cords are plugged into the machine, and also what the rotor positions are at the beginning of the message. So that constitutes the key. And if you have a strong encryption system, that should be enough to keep people, they would have to try all combinations of keys to actually find your message. But we'll also see that that wasn't sufficient as well, because of the ingenuity of the British in breaking the Enigma machine. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Oh, a page from the settings manual. Yeah, that's cool. Were you asking me to show you one, or do you have one? That was Richard. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's see, the other question, does each number stand for a letter on the keyboard? Yes, you'll see on that, some rotors had the letters of the alphabet around the end, A through Z, and others had the numbers 1 through 26. But they're basically compatible. They were just alternate ways of showing it. Yeah, so you can see here on the screen the key sheets, and one of the interesting things about this, this was the most top secret thing that any unit had, and so these were guarded very carefully. If they were on a boat, if your boat was going to be attacked or captured, they were instructed to throw these overboard, and they had a bag with lead weights that they would throw these. There was printed on paper that had water-soluble ink, and they would throw the code books into this bag, a mesh bag with lead weights in it overboard, so that should destroy the code book completely. Because anyone who has this code book could read, each sheet of this code book could read messages for the next month. If sent from everyone in a certain area that was all sharing the same codes. So, and then you can see it's printed in reverse order, like number 1. The left-hand column here is the day of the week, day of the month rather, 1 through 31 in this case. And so you would use the one at the bottom of the sheet first, and then after the day was over, you would tear that, you would cut that off and then destroy that. And so you'd kind of eat the code book up as you go through the month, destroying the codes that came in the past. So, all right. Should I go back to sharing my screen? Let's see. Is that okay? You see that? Great. I was going to say that also in World War II, there was the U.S. You can wonder, like, well, that was what the Germans were using in Enigma. What did the United States use? And this is one of the machines that the U.S. was using in the field. It's called the M209, and it's also a rotor type machine, but it's purely mechanical. And I have one of these as well. I could show that after we look at the Enigma. Alan Turing was working at Bletchley Park in the United Kingdom, and he he's responsible for a lot of the kind of mathematical ideas behind how to do code breaking of the Enigma machine. And he also worked with Gordon Welchman on that as well. I have a little video clip. I don't know if this will show. This is like the code breaking of the Enigma, and hopefully this will play for you. It's a short clip.
Yeah, got a message from this morning. We'll set them to. Yes, I know. Weather and Hitler. Peter John, yes. Run voltages through those letters through the back scramblers. Okay, so we'll use the loop. Yes, Joan. What was the last 6 a.m. message? L. L. H. W.
Oh, sorry. All right. So that a dramatic version of that, but that was called a bomb, and they used that to actually try lots of different combinations of rotor positions, and they'd figured out mathematically that they could, if they guessed part of the message, what would text that would be in the message, they could use this bomb to check through a lot of different combinations all at once. So why don't I switch to my other display, and let's see if I can get that showing. I'll stop sharing here. Stop. No. There we go. Okay. Any questions for me? Yeah, that was from the movie Imitation Game. Yeah, and so I'm going to switch. I'm going to do a little switcheroo and try to switch to my other camera and microphone. So bear with me for just a second. How is that? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How's that?
It's good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, can you see?
Well, your camera hasn't switched yet, sir.
Okay. I have to do speaker view on this guy. Spotlight, right?
Now we can see it, sir. Yep.
Thank you. So let me turn on some lights here. And this is the M94 Cipher device that I was talking about. So this is actually a really clever device because you can see it's just 25 different wheels, and each wheel has a different order of the alphabet on it. And the key for this particular device would be what order are you going to put the wheels on in the device, and you basically just kind of unscrew this thing, and then all the wheels just kind of come off like this. They're just stamped out of aluminum, and they have the letters of the alphabet pressed into them. So very simple kind of device. And Thomas Jefferson's, of course, was made out of wood. And the way you use this is that you would line up your message in in one particular row of, once the wheels are on in the right order for the day, you'd line up your message. So here I'm trying to send the message, I don't know if you can see it, attack at dawn. You can see the letters of my message right here, ending here. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
And then what the operator would do is they would just choose any other row. So it didn't have to be any particular row. They just choose one. So I might choose this one, MXGM, FLRCGM, etc. And then when you receive a message, you would have the wheels, of course, in the same order, and then you would put the coded message in that order. But then the code operator has to look all around the device, saying, where does it look like an English message? And they'd say, oh, there it is, attack at dawn. You know, and that's how they would decode that message. So I thought that's one of the more basic kind of mechanical devices.
Are the rotors marked so that if you change the order of the rotors, the recipient will know which one to put in? Is that like a number or something inside that identify which rotor is which?
Yeah, inside there is each one of these discs has a name. So you could see on the, I don't know if you can see on the inside of this one. This one's called the Z. It's stamped inside here. This is the Z wheel, or wheel number 25. And so each wheel is unique. It has a different pattern of letters on it. And so in advance, you would send the unit out again with like a code book that they would know in advance which wheel order to use on a particular day.
That's impressive.
Okay. All right. And then we can take a look at the Enigma machine. This one was basically kind of like a mechanical machine as well, except it's electronic only in as much as you use electricity to light up a light bulb and to trace the path of wires in the machine. So and then you can't see it very well here, but down here is the place where you would have the plug boards that plug in here. And but you saw that better picture when I showed it earlier. And then the keyboard is like this, and I think I'll have to turn off the lights a little bit just to show. So you can see like one of the keys is lighting up. Each time here I have an M lighting up. And notice I'm pressing the letter Q, but the W lights up. So in this position of the rotors, that's transferring the Q, going through the wires in and out, and then back to the light, this light. And then when I press the letter though, this first rotor is turning right away. Oh, it just happened to be W again. Now it's going to J, U. So every time I'm getting basically a different code. This is L, kind of a little dark, hard to see that. A.
K.
Yeah, A again. M. So it's changing the code every time. So I'll kind of show what it looks like on the inside. Shut this down.
Oh, nice.
There we go. That should be pretty good. Maybe turn on the light.
It's very clear. Actually, we saw better without the light.
I think you're right. Let's try that.
Yeah, it's better.
All right. So here's how the rotors come out of the machine. And so we'll take a look at one rotor. This is the number 3 rotor. The autofocus. There we go. So these are all the pins on the right-hand side of the rotor. And then these are the pads on the left-hand side of the rotor. So if I were to take this apart, you just have one wire going from each of these pins to a different one of these pads on the outside. And these are kind of spring-loaded. So when they press against the wheel to the right of them, they'll make an electrical contact. You'll also see that there's this wheel around here is just for the operator to turn it. So this is kind of for you to operate the wheel and rotate it in the case. And on the inside, let's see if I can find, yeah, there's this, let's see if I can get it to focus. Focus. There we go. There's like a little notch here. And it turns out that that notch will line up with, on the wheel to the left, one of these little cogs on the side of the wheel. And this notch is part of how the wheels actually turn and the way that they'll turn inside the machine. So if you'll refocus here, you can look inside the machine and see that the way that mechanically it works, if I'm pressing a letter now, you see these pawls coming out. Each one of these is like a little lever that will potentially turn the wheel one space, advance it one letter forward every time. Now the only reason that the letters, well, the right-hand wheel always will move forward one letter every time you press a key. But because there's only, if you look at the wheel to the left of this one, that pawl is gonna be blocked by the ring here unless the notch is in the right place. So every time this turns around 26 times, this notch will be in the right place, and then the wheel to the left of this one will then turn as well. That's usually the more confusing aspect of like trying to read about how an Enigma machine works. I don't know if that's maybe a little confusing, but if I start there, you saw that one. So at this particular position of the wheel, when I press the key, you see both of these wheels turn instead of just the one on the right. Oh, and there, all three of them actually turned because they were all lined up. That's really rare. That usually happens only after like whatever 26 squared is 1,000 times or something. So that's the normal operation of the wheel rotation, and then there I got another rotation of the middle wheel. So you can see how the scrambling pattern of the wires is going to be really completely different for every letter of the message. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So some people are having problems focusing on the one screen. Are there any?
That's okay. I'm dealing with it in parallel, so don't worry. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions so far about that?
Sir, this is Cadet Second Lieutenant Nathan Smith. I had a quick question about it.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you demonstrated that when you press a key down on the actual keyboard, a different light showed up every time that you pressed the same key. So I think it was Q you were pressing, and it was showing K and N and Q. So then if there's multiple light combinations for each key, how is it possible for someone to understand that?
Okay, so well, the way the machine works is that like if I will depend. It's all very well. How do I say it? The way it's very deterministic. Like for every particular position of these wheels. So if the wheels are like now they're in the position. In my machine, it's a 773 right here. So in position 773, if I press a Q, an E comes up. If I go back to position 773 and I press the E, the Q lights up. So all the Enigma machine is doing is it's swapping one letter for another for any particular position. So all the configuration of the machine in one particular position, including the plug board, the wheels, their position is going to be defining a function that swaps letters. So 13 letters will swap to 13 different letters. And so in this case, Q will always swap to E and E will always swap to Q. So when you set up the machine to encode a message, if I'm trying to transmit a letter E, it's going to come out as a letter Q in this position. But then when they receive a message, the operator is going to set up the machine in the exact same state. So when they press a Q, they would get the E back. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir. And it actually helped me to understand better the practical use of the pens on the front that would switch out the certain letters on certain days as well.
Yeah, so that adds an extra level of letter swapping, and you know, billions and billions of combinations of letters of things can be set up through that patch cord. So so one of the things I also was sent out in your packet, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, was the paper Enigma machine. And I thought I would show that because it's kind of instructive also for understanding how the actual Enigma machine works. This piece of paper is actually completely compatible with the mechanical Enigma machine, except it doesn't have the plug boards on the front. But all other aspects of how the machine is working are really defined through this. So what you can do is there's an example at the bottom of the page. It says here's a sample message, and it says we're going to use rotors 1, 2, and 3. This is kind of like the key setting for the day, and then the initial rotor positions are going to be M, C, and K. So for rotor number 1, you would put here on the left-hand side, put the letter M, and then for rotor number 2, you're going to put it in the position letter C, and then for rotor number 3, you're going to put it in position number K. So now the machine is set up for our initial coding of our message. And so to operate this, we're going to have to pretend like we're an Enigma machine, and we have to move the rotors ourselves in just the same way that the Enigma machine would do it. So we're going to encode the letter E at this time and see what happens. So the very first thing when you press a key is this rotor moves up 1. So it actually moves up to the position L before anything else happens. Then I'm going to start with the letter E, and I'm going to go across here, and I see the letter E here. Now this rotor here is acting kind of like wires. So we're going to look for the matching E on the other side. So I see there's an E down here. Imagine there was a wire connecting this E to that E. Then I would go across through the pins to the next rotor, and I see the letter Y. And I look for another Y in this column, say, oh, there it is here. So these two are connected. Then the electrical signal would go across to the V here. And I'm looking across and I see the V, the matching V, then the wire is connecting to here. Then we go through the reflecting rotor. This V is connected to a J. There's a J over here. That's the connecting part of the reflecting rotor. And now we have to go back through here. Now we're going through the J wire. And we come out through here. We get to the P wire. And we have to look at where does the P wire come out? Oh, right here. The P wire comes out at the D wire. And then the D wire here comes out at the letter Q. So this would light up the light for the letter Q, which is exactly what, as you recall, the machine did before I had it set up in this same setting. Any questions? Oh, yeah, there was a question about there's a couple questions. One is like, what is this thing? This is a battery setting. So like you could plug in, I have a battery inside here. I just put in some D-cell batteries that are inside this little case, but there was a special battery that went in here to light this up, but you could also plug in
you could connect it to external power over here. So depending on how you wanted to use the power setting, this would be used to select a different way you get power to the Enigma. Let's see. Oh yes, so the fact it happens in milliseconds. Yeah, this is yeah. You can see like doing it manually is a lot slower than encoding messages with the Enigma itself. But it's also really heavy. Like this thing is probably weighs about 20 to 30 pounds. So in some ways, the paper Enigma is more convenient if you have the time to decode the messages. Any more questions about the Enigma? Let's see. I could show you decoding a longer message.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but this is kind of a silly question, but is yours real or a replica?
Oh, this is an authentic Enigma machine. So
really?
Yeah. Many years ago, probably more than 20 years ago, I was on a mailing list of people who were just interested in Bletchley Park, which was the site of the British code breaking operation, and which is now a museum today. And a Russian professor living in Washington, D.C., posted to the list saying he needed some money and he needed to sell his Enigma machine, which was given to him by a fellow professor in Europe. And does anybody know how much they're worth? And so I replied back to him that I didn't know myself, but if we could, find a recent auction or something like that, I would love to buy it from him. So I agreed on a price, and I flew to Washington, D.C., and we took it to the Cryptological Museum in Maryland, which is near the NSA. NSA has a cryptography and cryptology museum, and they looked at it and said, "Yeah, it's authentic," and I went ahead and purchased it. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I got into collecting other machines kind of soon after that. Yeah, so let's set up the machine to decode a little bit of this message that's at the bottom of this sheet here. Again, we'll set it up again. So M, again, the code is set up as MCK, so I have to know that like M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, C is the 3rd letter of the alphabet, and K is, what is that, the 11th letter of the alphabet, I believe. There we go. I don't know if I can zoom. And I'll turn off the lights again so you can see better. All right. So here, the message at the bottom begins with the letter Q. And so if someone could write down the code letters as I type them, you'll get the message. So Q comes out as an E. M comes out as an N. J comes out as an I. I comes out as a G. D is encoded as an M. And O is decoded as an A. Anybody copy what that word is?
Awesome. That's Enigma.
Yes. And I'll leave the rest of this message as an exercise if you want to play with the paper Enigma. So that's the Enigma. Should I switch over to one of my other devices unless someone else has any other questions about that one?
No, if there's no other questions, we can look into the other special things you have.
Yeah. So, well, you saw this one, the M94, but also in World War II, this is what the United States Army was using, which is the M209, and I'll show here. Let's see, get some light on it. Focus. So again, it has a set of rotors that you would position in a particular order to set up the key. That's part of the key. But to input letters here, you'd actually spin this wheel and line up with this little notch here, so that this would be your input letter. And then once you had it set up, you would turn this crank, and then the output letter would appear back here. It's a little difficult to see. There's another set of letters on the inside of that. I'm going to move the light so you can see it. There's the letter inside. So that's the decoded letter. And you'll notice that after I set the wheel, if you watch this wheel while I turn this crank, see it's kind of moving. It's moving a certain number of positions away from the original letter. So that's what this device does, is that for every position in the code, it's going to rotate this wheel anywhere between 1 and 25 positions away from the original letter. And this is how it does it. It's all mechanical. You'll see a cage back here. And when you rotate this cage actually turns. And then what it's doing is it's bringing these little tabs in direct contact with pins that are on the sides of each of these wheels. And it's kind of like doing a logical logical OR function across each row. If any of these tabs line up with the pins on the wheel in one row, it'll add one count of rotation. And so the pattern of these wheels and the pins will produce kind of like a random sequence of numbers between 1 and 25 for every letter of the message. And so it's kind of like computing a function of these wheels. And you'll notice the wheels all turn. They turn every time you finish encoding a letter. These wheels all turn one notch as well. So you get a totally different set of exposed pins that are in the back here. And I don't know if I can really zoom in on that.
Oh, we can see well. The thing is, how can the receiver have the exact setting as you have if every time you turn, it moves everything? Because the Enigma machine, for example, we give it a setting at first.
Well, yeah, the key for the machine is pretty complicated. It's the position of all of these tabs. There's a little tool in the lid here where you can you can slide things back and forth. If you put a tab in the null position here, one of these zeros, then it will have no effect. But otherwise, there's a tab you can move the tabs to any of 1 through 6 position to engage with each of the 1 through 6 wheels. And but then there's also all these little pins on each side of the wheel. I don't know if I can actually flip one. I don't know if you could see, you take a little device and you push it in so that it's not sticking out anymore. I can't really get it right here. I don't have the right tool, it's the pen. But it's pretty intricate. But then you set it up so that the starting code here would also be part of the key. So everybody would set up their machine so that it's in exactly the same state. So the wheels are in the same order, the pins that are sticking out are the same, and all the tabs are the same. So the machine will always add the same number of shift positions for everybody.
This is a really neat machine. It's all mechanical, so we can make it out of Legos, right?
Pretty, yeah, I think you probably could, but it is really complicated. It had the benefit of not requiring electricity at all. And one of the things I like to show us also about this machine is that it has this weird, if you look at the box, it has these kind of weird strips here, and this strange kind of indentation. As I like to ask people if they have any idea why the box would look like that.
To fit on your lap better?
Very good. Yes. So the machine comes with, this is meant to be used in the field. So it comes with a canvas strap with a hook that goes around each side here. You'd wrap the strap around your boot and tighten it down against your leg. So this sits on your leg. You can kneel, you can basically kneel in the field and have this thing securely positioned on top of your leg, and it will hold it in place while you're operating it. And I can just imagine someone sitting in a foxhole or in, you know, standing in the mud somewhere with this thing strapped around their leg, trying to decode a message with bombs going off all around them or whatever their situation is.
So one of the questions for you is, what was the strip of paper for?
Oh, I'm sorry, that device had the very cool feature that it actually printed the message out. So mine, the ink is dry. This little thing has an ink roller on it, and you can see like there's also so you didn't have to actually write it down with paper. You can see there's an embossed letters right here that match the decoded or the encoded or decoded letter, and it would actually print that on this strip of paper. So you get a line of characters along this paper, and it actually has glue on the back so that you would then paste this up onto a piece of paper to read the whole message.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Okay. The company that made the M209, even the M209 is probably 5 pounds and pretty bulky. And so the company that made that actually came out with a new model. This was used during the Cold War. You know, the M209 itself was used all the way through the Korean War in some cases. And this device would have been given to spies or maybe also sold to other countries for their secure communications. But it has the feature that it's completely compatible with the M209 in its workings. It looks a little bit different. You would choose a letter to be encoded here, and then you would turn this, and then this wheel would rotate the certain number of positions depending on the same kind of settings on the inside of this device.
What was the name, the name of the device again?
This is the CD57, I think. Yeah, I think that's right. CD54 or CD57. I'll have to look it up. I forget right now, but yeah. And if you look at the inside, you know, it has some similar things. You have wheels with 6 different wheels with different pin settings, and then some mechanical things that would then sense whether a pin is out in a particular position or not, and accomplish like rotating this dial a certain number of steps for encoding or decoding.
So compared to the Enigma machine, this one always move the same way for letters. We don't have like the rotor that's go forward of one every time you input a new letter, so that scramble the order.
No, this does the same thing, a slightly different way. But if you look at these are the rotors inside here. You see they all move. Yeah. Every time I do a letter, they all move. So you are getting a different code for every letter of your message.
But if I have the letter A, will I always have the same letter coming out, or it becomes scrambled as it's moving, it never go back to its original position?
Right, it never goes back. And actually, one way of counting like the security of a machine is like how many different rotor positions are there. On the Enigma, there's something like 17,000. You do like 26 times 26 times 26 positions of each rotor. You get the total number of possible positions. It kind of moves like an odometer almost, but so the Enigma machine, as you send a long message, will go through lots of different positions of the 3 different rotors and never repeat them. This machine, you'll notice, and the M209, I don't know if you could focus this again. These wheels all move. It's probably hard for you to see, like but they're all moving one notch every time. The M209 is probably a little easier to see. So you might think that those wheels are going to line up and repeat the same position again soon, because as soon as all the wheels turn around one time, won't they all be back again at the same position again, and your code will be, you know, only like 26 letters long. But there's a trick here. I don't know if anybody wants to guess about how this is actually a much bigger number of combinations as more than 26.
The rotors rotate independently?
They all rotate together. They all go one letter. They all advance by 1 letter every time. Okay, I'll reveal the secret. It's a little hard to tell, but you can kind of see how far these letters are spaced apart on this wheel and how close they are together on this wheel. So every wheel has a different number of letters around. And it turns out that the number of letters of each wheel is relatively prime to every other letter of the machine. So if you turn them all 1 letter at a time, they will start to get out of phase, and they actually won't line up again until you get every possible permutation of every letter here again. So that's
we know who invented that machine, because it's pretty complex.
Yes, Hagelin, a guy named Hagelin.
Oh, yeah.
This is a machine of a type Hagelin invention. And what did we discover? Was he Swedish or something? I think that was it.
Yeah, that's what the company that makes it was Swiss, but Hagelin was Swedish.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to break in here for just a second.
Yes.
We're about 10 minutes over our scheduled and allotted time, and some of these folks have been in all 3 classes. So I would like to probably acknowledge that and let those that need to leave. And if there's continued discussion, I'll leave the room open going on, because there seems to be a lot of interest on this. Any thoughts?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. So people can choose. I understand you've been here the whole day. You might be tired. And you're welcome to go now if you choose so. If you want to have more questions or want to discuss more about this machine with Mr. Koss, you're welcome to stay and ask your question.
Absolutely. So I do want to thank everyone who has participated and been here as well. So officially, I'm going to stop the recording, and if you need to leave, you can leave. But as I said, I encourage you to continue keeping your curiosity satisfied. Thanks to one and all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.